Am I the only one that didn't know how fast a life can change? Am I the only one that didn't know a child could vanish between heartbeats? Am I the only one that didn't know the Smokies kept secrets like this? June, 1969. Great Smoky Mountains, a family camping trip that should read like a postcard. The Martins set up tents, built a fire, and watched their boys run through pines and dappled light. Dennis was 6, small, laughing, the one who wanted to play hide and seek. They counted. They called. He bolted toward a thick clump of rhododendron, ducked behind it, and the clock started. Less than a minute later, there was no laugh, no rustle, no tiny footsteps. 1 second he was there. The next, silence. What followed was a scramble through mountain undergrowth, shouted names into fog, a family becoming frantic before authorities arrived. Tracks were followed. Searches stretched for days. The Great Smokies, ancient and dense, offered no answer. This is the beginning of the vanishing minute, the instant that turned a summer evening into a decades-long mystery. In part 1, we stay with the scene, the tents, the campfire, the empty space behind the bush where a boy should have been. No conclusions, just the slow, cold fact. On a June day in 1969, Dennis Martin vanished. Next episode, the first searches, the theories, and how a mountain keeps its silence. Exposing the storm in the search, the one thing that turned a hunt into a burial. The rain didn't just soak the ground, it erased answers. Suddenly, 400 people were looking at a blank slate. They came in droves. Neighbors, volunteers, sheriff's deputies. Then the heavy hitters. Green Beret Special Forces joining the ranks, tracking teams with dogs, helicopters cutting the gray sky. 1,400 men combing brush and creek, calling his name into a world that answered only with wind. And then the weather changed the game. A storm rolled in fierce and fast, cold sheets of rain that flattened footprints, muddied trails washed scent from the earth. Dogs lost the thread, boot prints became shadows, evidence that might have pinned a moment in time simply vanished down the gullies. Searches continued with grim discipline. Grids lined sweep after sweep. But the mountain had been scrubbed clean. Items once visible were now scattered and indistinguishable in the mud. Witnesses remember the chaos of uniforms, umbrellas collapsing into one another as hope slipped away with every downpour. In the space between the last clear trail and the rain's final wash, certainty dissolved. The search hadn't failed for lack of effort. It failed because nature refused to keep the story. It was too far to help, but close enough to witness the impossible. Same voice, same hush, but the story sharpens. Harold Key was not at the campsite. He was miles away, walking where the trees closed like a dark mouth. Then he froze. He told investigators he heard a sickening, non-human scream. Not a child's cry. Not a dog's yelp. Something raw and animal and wrong. A few seconds later, through a slit in the pines, Key saw movement. A tall, hairy figure. What he called a wild man, running on 2 legs. It clambered through the understory with a strange, lurching gait. On its shoulder was something red, something bright against the drab of the forest. Dennis had been wearing red. Harold couldn't believe his eyes. He watched the figure disappear into the trees, carrying that red burden as if it weighed nothing. His description would haunt the case. Non-human scream. A hairy runner, the red flash of fabric, or blood. Was it a wild animal? A person in disguise? Or something else entirely? The more Harold saw, the less the world made sense. Exposing the wild man in the FBI's file. Exposing the gaps in a government story. Exposing why questions still echo over the park. The FBI moved in, took control. One testimony stands out. Harold Key. He described a disheveled man, with something red slung over his shoulder, and a sickening scream not long after Dennis vanished. Key's description even matched Dennis's red shirt, timing roughly an hour after the disappearance. But investigators waved it off, citing distance and timeline problems, ignored or intentionally sidelined. Meanwhile, the Green Berets, Elite operators set up their own base. Inside the park, they mostly kept to themselves. They declined offers from rangers to escort them. Then, almost without explanation, the FBI told them to leave. No public explanation. No shared findings. Weeks after, the Bureau closed the chapter. Search suspended on June 29, 1969, claiming no evidence of kidnapping. Their files? Still classified despite FOIA pushes. Reporters kept knocking for answers. So we're left with dismissed witnesses, withdrawn commandos, a sealed file cabinet. Coincidence or cover-up? The questions outnumber the answers, and the silence only makes them louder. This is the last stop. 5 theories, 90 seconds. Buckle up. Theory 1. Feral humans. Some witnesses say survivors became something else. Isolated feral living off the land, avoiding contact. Sounds like a horror movie, but reports don't fit neat categories. Strange tracks, furtive sightings, people who promised not to speak and never did. Theory 2. Kidnapping. Organized? Opportunistic? Investigators argue Dennis was abducted. Motive means a plan to vanish without a trace, missing person patterns, inconsistent timelines, a trail that dries up suddenly. Theory 3. Government secret. The most unsettling theory. Official involvement cover-up, classified operations, redacted pages, sealed files, sworn silence because secrecy breeds speculation. There are variations and hybrids, feral cult rumors, kidnapping with cover-up scenarios, wild unverified tales. Each theory has pieces that fit and pieces that don't. What we do know, official files remain sealed to this day. No full accounting. No final report, just more questions, a locked archive that keeps answers out of public hands. This documentary ends here, but the story doesn't have to. If you want to dig deeper, join our investigation, contribute tips, analyze documents, crowdsource leads, head to Project Ciphera and be part of unsealing the truth. This is the finale, not the solution. See you inside. Project Ciphera.